There's a certain kind of person you've met 1,000 times, the one who looks flawless, polished, collected, the one everyone else quietly envies. But here's the truth nobody sees. Behind that perfect exterior hides a private, invisible hell. And the scariest part, they've become so good at pretending that even the people closest to them have no idea. They're falling apart. This is the psychology of people who secretly hate their own life, but have mastered the art of looking fine. The hook. The most dangerous smile is the one that doesn't reach the eyes. These people don't break down in public. They don't complain. They don't ask for help. Instead, they transform their life into a performance, a role they've learned so well, it becomes indistinguishable from their identity. They don't want to be happy. They want to be unquestionably convincing, because if they stop smiling for 1 second, someone might see the truth. The first sign. They live in highlight reel mode. These are the people who curate every detail. Their clothes, their posture, their tone of voice, the way they laugh at exactly the right moments. Everything is controlled. Everything is rehearsed. It's not confidence, it's armor. They feel safe only when they're performing the version of themselves other people approve of. Not because they love admiration, but because deep down they're terrified of being truly seen. The second sign. They are terrified of slow moments. Silence is their enemy. Stillness is a threat. Because in the quiet moments, all the emotions they've buried wake up. So they stay busy, overbooked, overproductive, overcommitted. If they don't stop moving, the truth can't catch them. The third sign. They struggle with emotional numbness. They don't feel joy. They don't feel excitement. They don't even feel sadness the way others do. They feel nothing. Numbness is the natural consequence of suppressing reality for too long. When you shut down the pain, you also shut down the ability to feel happiness. This is why they look perfect on the outside, but feel hollow on the inside. A beautiful mask worn over an empty room. The real reason they hide their pain, because flawed humans can be forgiven. But perfect people, they believe perfection is the only thing holding their life together. If they ever admit the truth, that they secretly hate their life, everything they've built might collapse. So instead, they keep pretending. They smile harder, work more, push further, play the role until it consumes them. And the tragedy is this. The world applauds them for the very thing that is destroying them. If you want to understand the psychology of people who secretly hate their own life, you must understand one brutal truth. They don't suffer because their life is terrible. They suffer because they've built a life they can't emotionally live in. And it all starts with the performance. The performance they can't escape. People who secretly hate their life are not lazy, weak, or broken. They're exhausted actors trapped inside a role they've been playing for so long that they've started to confuse it with identity. They smile because they're supposed to. They seem good because anything else feels socially illegal. They work hard, sometimes harder than everyone else, because slowing down would force them to actually feel something. Their entire world becomes a mask glued to their face. And the mask has 3 layers. 1. The mask of competence. They look put together because losing control terrifies them. They've convinced everyone around them that they're the strong one, the responsible one, the one who never falls apart. So now they can't fall apart, not without disappointing the entire planet. This is the prison they built with their own excellence. 2. The mask of normalcy. They act normal, but inside they feel alien, disconnected, like they're watching their life through glass. They copy everyone else's rhythm, laugh here, nod there, show polite interest, but none of it feels real. They're not living. They're imitating human behavior. 3. The mask of gratitude. The cruelest one. They tell themselves, you have food, a job, people who care. You should be grateful. Why aren't you happy? And the moment you shame yourself for feeling empty, the emptiness doubles. Because now you're not just unhappy, you're guilty for being unhappy. This guilt forces them deeper into silence. How can they complain when their life looks better than other people's? They can't, so they don't. The truth they never say out loud. Most of these people don't hate their life because it's bad. They hate it because it doesn't belong to them. They built it for approval, safety, stability, validation, survival, but not for themselves. They live a life optimized for other people's expectations, not their own emotional truth. And here is the psychological trap. When you live a life that isn't yours, even success feels like failure. They achieve things they don't care about. They maintain friendships they don't feel connected to. They follow routines that drain them. They say yes out of fear. They stay silent out of habit. They disappear inside their own perfection. And every day, the distance between who they are and who they pretend to be gets wider. This quiet internal split is what slowly destroys them. The symptoms of a life that looks perfect but feels wrong. People who secretly hate their life show subtle signs. They feel tired no matter how much they sleep. They zone out often, like they're not really there. They lose interest in things that should excite them. They feel irritated but don't know why. They have everything yet feel nothing. They avoid silence because silence exposes too much. They feel like they're running from something they can't name. And the worst part, nobody notices, because they train the world to see the mask, not the person behind it. The world applauds their stability, while they quietly crumble under the weight of it. But there's one more layer to this psychology, the part nobody talks about: the reason. They can't just fix their life, even when they see the problem. There's a moment in the life of someone who secretly hates their own life that almost never gets spoken about. It's the moment when the performance stops, not publicly, not dramatically, but quietly, invisibly. When the door closes and the mask finally slips off. And what's underneath isn't rage or despair, but something much harder to explain. A strange emptiness, like they're watching themselves exist from across the room. Most people assume that those who appear perfect must have mastered the art of living, but the truth is far stranger. What they've mastered is the art of suppressing every signal their mind tries to send. They're not avoiding reality, they're silencing it. They've built a life so polished, so carefully curated, that there is no space left for anything real. And because of that, their inner world becomes a quiet battlefield. No explosions, no dramatic breakdowns, just a slow erosion of the self. A gentle dissolving of everything they once were. They don't tell anyone about this, because how do you explain emptiness to people who only see your highlight reel? How do you confess loneliness when everyone thinks you're surrounded by admirers? How do you admit you feel broken when your life looks beautifully symmetrical from the outside? So they nod and smile and keep performing the identity the world rewards them for until the identity becomes more real than the person. This is where the exhaustion begins, not the physical kind, but a deep psychological tiredness that settles into the bones. It's the fatigue of constantly trying to maintain an image that no longer fits. It's the subtle panic of living a life that doesn't feel like yours. It's the guilt of having everything people admire, while feeling absolutely nothing toward it. At night, this internal war becomes louder. Their mind replays moments from the day: perfect interactions, successful conversations, accomplished tasks, and yet, none of it feels alive. It all feels scripted, rehearsed, mechanical. They're performing a version of themselves they outgrew years ago. But they never stopped long enough to rewrite the script. And then comes the terrifying question they avoid at all costs. If I stop pretending, will anyone stay? That question haunts them. It follows them into every room, every relationship, every moment of silence. It shapes their behavior, their choices, their identity. And the fear behind it keeps them compliant. Because deep down, they believe their real self is not enough, not admirable enough, not strong enough, not lovable enough to survive outside the persona they've built. So instead of changing their life, they change their expression. They change their tone. They change the version of themselves they present. But what they never change is the internal wound they've become so skilled at hiding. The scariest part is that this lifestyle feels sustainable until it doesn't. Until one day, they wake up and feel nothing but a dull ache where their ambition used to be. Until the mask starts to feel too heavy. Until the silence inside grows louder than the applause outside. until the person they pretend to be becomes impossible to carry. And that's when they start to notice the cracks, not in their life, but in themselves. Small fractures that widen with every forced smile, every fake laugh, every moment of pretending everything is fine. Cracks that expose the truth they've avoided for so long. They've built a life for everyone but themselves. This is the hidden psychology of people who secretly hate their own life. They don't crumble in public. They crumble silently, beautifully, invisibly behind an image everyone else envies. There comes a moment in the lives of people who secretly hate their own life, when the mask they've been wearing becomes heavier than the life itself. But instead of removing it, they tighten it. They pull the strings harder. They smile wider. They speak softer. They pretend better. Because admitting the truth feels like stepping off a cliff. On the outside, they look unshakable. They seem organized, stable, productive, dependable. They're the ones everyone goes to for advice. The ones people describe as strong, put together, thriving. And they play the role convincingly, almost beautifully. But internally, there's a quiet collapse happening. Not loud, not dramatic, but slow, subtle, and suffocating. A collapse they fear people would judge them for. A collapse they fear people would misunderstand. A collapse they fear people would notice. Because once someone sees the real state of their inner world, the performance ends. And they don't know who they are without the performance. So they hide the exhaustion in routine. They hide the shame in productivity. They hide the emptiness in kindness. They hide the hopelessness in humor. And the deeper they bury the truth, the more the lie becomes their second skin, tight, suffocating, familiar. Every morning, they wake up with the same silent dread. I can't keep doing this. And every morning, they put on the same practice smile. Yes, I can. They move through life like a ghost wearing someone else's face. They go through the motions, work, conversations, responsibilities, obligations, but it all feels scripted, rehearsed, hollow. They laugh at jokes but don't feel joy. They achieve goals but don't feel proud. They spend time with people but don't feel connected. It's like watching life through glass, close enough to touch, but forever out of reach. And the worst part, they blame themselves for it. They tell themselves they're ungrateful, dramatic, weak, overthinking. Everyone has problems. They whisper to themselves at night, why should yours matter? And that's how the isolation grows, not from people around them, but from their own refusal to believe they deserve help. So the cycle continues. They think about changing their life, but the thought feels impossible. They dream about disappearing, but the guilt stops them. They want someone to look at them and say, I know you're not okay, but no one says it. Because the mask is perfect. Their performance is flawless. Their silence is convincing. They've mastered the art of hiding every crack until even they forget where the breaking started. But beneath all the layers, beneath the mask and the lies and the rehearsed normalcy is a simple, painful truth. They aren't living a life. They're maintaining an illusion. And they're terrified that one day the illusion will shatter. Not because they fear being seen, but because they fear having nothing real left underneath. There comes a moment, a quiet, almost invisible one, where a person who has spent their entire life performing finally breaks character. Not in public, not in some dramatic collapse, but in the privacy of their own mind. It happens when they realize the mask they wear isn't something they can take off anymore. It has fused with their face. And the scariest part, no one even noticed. People who secretly hate their own life rarely scream for help. They rarely confess. They rarely crumble in the dramatic ways movies love to show. Instead, they fade. Slowly, quietly, gracefully. Because they were trained their whole life to make suffering look beautiful. On the outside, they still smile. They still succeed. They still function like someone who has everything under control. But inside something is dying. Not suddenly, but piece by piece. The same way you lose light in a room as the sun sinks below the horizon. They hate their life not because they want more, but because they lost themselves somewhere along the way. They became what everyone else needed and forgot who they were. Before the world demanded a performance. The truth is, they don't want applause anymore. They don't want perfection. They don't want to be the strong one. They don't want to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. They just want to exist without feeling like they're failing some invisible test. Psychologically, this type of inner collapse is a sign of chronic emotional suppression. Years of infine, years of pretending, years of editing themselves to fit into rooms where they never truly belonged. When you silence yourself long enough, your inner world becomes a ghost town. No color, no warmth, just echoes of who you used to be. But here's the twist. The thing that saves them is never perfection. It's honesty. Raw, uncomfortable, terrifying honesty. The first moment they admit, even quietly to themselves, "I'm not okay," the mask cracks. The performance loses power. And for the first time, they are not a character in their own life. They are a person again. People who secretly hate their life don't need someone to fix them. They need someone who sees them without the costume. Someone who doesn't fall in love with the filtered version, the polished version, the curated version, but with the messy, tired, overwhelmed human underneath. Because the moment they feel seen for real, they stop hiding. And the moment they stop hiding, they stop hating the life they built for survival and start building one they can actually live in. In the end, their story isn't about perfection collapsing. It's about authenticity reborn. Not a dramatic transformation, not a sudden awakening, just a soft return to themselves after years of pretending everything was fine. A return that whispers, "I don't want to look perfect anymore. I just want to be real."